Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the presentation 12 of the second day of Challenges, Opportunities, and Reflections on ELT. My name is Stefania Nguisaka. I am a student of the sixth semester of the English language teaching major in UNAE. Today, I am responsible for hosting this presentation, and I am glad to welcome Fernanda Espinoza, Diego Ortega, and Paul Siguenza. Fernanda Espinoza is an EFL teacher in the Universidad Regional Amazónica ICAM. She holds a master's degree on curriculum and instruction from the Kansas State University, and she's currently working in several research projects about EFL teaching. Diego Ortega is an instructor at Universidad Nacional de Educación UNAE. He has been a teacher for about 14 years, and he's actively engaged in research and publishing. He holds a master's degree in curriculum and instruction from the Kansas State University, and he's studying his doctoral degree program in education in Spain. Paul Siguenza is an English teacher and researcher at UNAE. He holds a master's degree on applied linguistics on teaching English as a foreign language, and a master's in leadership and school administration. Currently, he is in his first year of PhD program on advanced English studies. Today, they are presenting the topic, Factors that Motivate Students' English Learning in Ecuadorian University Classroom, a mixed method study. Welcome, and let's start with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone, our dear attendees of this virtual conference. First of all, I would like to point out that this presentation o ponencia es un producto perteneciente al proyecto de investigación titulado Factores que motivan el aprendizaje de inglés de estudiantes universitarios en Ecuador, investigando las perspectivas de diferentes actores educativos, aprobado en la convocatoria UNAE de proyectos de investigación 2018-2019 por la transformación educativa. The colleagues who will be with me today are Master Fernanda Espinoza and Paul Siguenza. I would like to share something about the background and introduction of our project. A few years ago, there were some shocking news on TV and on the internet about the fact that Ecuadorian students were about to graduate, but they didn't have the required level of English and they needed to take a proficiency exam as quickly as possible, and so they were able to graduate because they already fulfilled the other graduation requirements, and that was a big concern indeed. And afterwards, we came up with a research interest, and based on that interest, we conducted a small research study which started in May 2018 through an independent research initiative. And the study was conducted in 3 universities located in one Ecuadorian region only. On the other hand, the Article 80 of the Ecuadorian Higher Education Law, which was updated in 2019, states that students need to attain a Common European Framework B1 level as the required level by the time they finish their programs of study. The small study we did investigated only students' perceptions from 3 universities through a survey. And the results of that study were the basis or the starting point for drafting a more comprehensive and long-term research project. And that proposal was submitted to the Call of Research Project Proposals at UNAE. And now we wanted to investigate this problem through a mixed method research, consisting of questionnaire surveys, focus group interviews, and one-on-one interviews. And the research design of a project is based on explanatory sequential, consisting of 2 interrelated phases, a quantitative phase and a qualitative phase. The first phase or quant phase has been conducted in 9 universities, and the second phase in 5 universities, which are located in different provinces in 3 regions of Ecuador. As indicated, the type of mixed methods approach that is being used in our study is explanatory sequential, and the main emphasis is on qualitative data. This kind of data was not gathered in the previous smaller study, and the qualitative data is intended to be gathered through focus group and one-on-one interviews. And actually, so far, we have collected data through 8 different focus groups. Something about the theoretical framework and literature review of our project, I would like to start mentioning the importance behind the role and impact of motivation in the learning of a second language. And this topic has been written and investigated about different authors, and I would like to use their words. For instance, Gardner states, motivated individuals make efforts to learn and find it enjoyable to learn the target language. Instrumental motivation, such as getting a job, passing a required exam, and integrative motivation, for instance, meeting and communicating with members of the second language community, these two types of motivations can produce highly positive results. Furthermore, motivation is crucial for success or failure in the learning of a second language. Additionally, I would like to share some more research-based ideas on motivation and EFL learners and EFL learning from some other authors. It is important to think about motivation as the essence of language teaching because of the stark realities of learning English for most of our students. Besides, external motivational factors such as teachers' teaching style, understanding of a student's level and their difficulties, relevant lesson plans, positive teacher-student relations are helpful for teachers to reduce students' anxiety and negative negative attitude in learning. In addition to that, surveyed university English students feel motivated to learn the English language in order to achieve several different goals. For instance, they want to be able to communicate well in the target language, get different types of graduate degrees, such as master's degrees, both in Ecuador and overseas, and learn more about English-speaking cultures by traveling. And by reviewing the literature, we identify a research gap, which is as follows. There are no research studies that investigate multiple perspectives of different participants, namely EFL students, EFL teachers, directors of language centers, and experts in English language education at the university level. So that's why our project has a twofold overarching objective, which is the following: to determine key and current factors that motivate Ecuadorian undergraduate students who are not English majors to learn the English language, as perceived by the university students themselves, EFL teachers, language center directors, and experts in English language teaching and learning, and put forward a language teaching methodological proposal based on the study results that provide teachers with recommendations and effective practices to better motivate their students toward meaningful English language learning at university. With regard to the second part of our overarching or general objective, it is intended that the overall findings of a research project will be the basis or foundation for creating recommendations and suggesting techniques and strategies and their implementation in EFL classroom of Ecuadorian universities. What will be the focus of our presentation? From now on, the focus of our presentation will be on the perceptions of English students in different majors from several different universities in Ecuador about the factors that motivate their English learning. Now we will hear from Paul.
it's a mixed method research, and it's an explanatory sequential design, which this basically means is that we use a combination of both forms of data in order just to provide a better understanding of the research problem. So in this way, we have a quantitative and qualitative data. And based on these characteristics of these mixed methods, we plan to collect quantitative and qualitative sets of data to make an integration of these two data forms. And the purpose of this, to be specific, is just to have a more complete, a very thorough, in-depth understanding of the research problem that can be gained. Okay, and the context that the methodology was applied. A total of 2,077 participants from different universities of Ecuador participated. We used a survey which was conducted to undergraduate students of English of 9 universities here in Ecuador. And we also used 8 focus groups where we interview students from 5 different universities. Okay, and one thing that it's important here is also, especially in the A focus group, is that 5 were conducted in the specific universities, and the other 3 focus groups we actually had students from different universities joining in one group. So this just again to gather more practical, more real data. Okay, now about the results in the survey that was conducted. We have some of the demographic information from the students. So in this way, if we talk about the first thing that I wanted to show you was the age, the age ranking that the students were, and as you can probably see, the majority of them were between 21 and 24 years of age, but also from from 17 to 20 years of age. And their language level, the majority of them, from their perspective, were beginners. So they were from an A1 level. Sorry, they were from, beginners from A2 and from A1. From the intermediate level, again, we have about 20% of the students who believe or who had the perspective that they were intermediate. And advanced, we only have about less than actually 1% of the students who believe. So again, the majority of them, you can see that they are, at least from their perspective, they consider themselves to be beginners. Okay, and as from the age group that I was telling you about, the majority of them were between 21 and 24 years of age, which represented the 46.4%, but also we had students from 17 to 20 years of age. So we can set basically that more than 80% of the students were between 17 years of age to 24 years of age, which is the normal ranking for university students. Regarding the gender, we had more females which participated in this research. So we have about 67% of female gender in this case, and from the masculine gender we have 31% more or less, and from the LGBTI community we have about 1%, which was actually what was represented by the students in this particular case. Next, sorry. And their social economical status, okay, the majority of them again were in the middle or to lower class, lower social economical status. Sorry. So in this particular regard, we have about we will say almost 100%, which came from those social economical backgrounds. And as you can see, just 0.1%, which actually came from a high income family. So, and again, this is just data that is important for us in order to establish the background of our students. Now, regarding now the survey that we conducted, we have here some very relevant information that it has been stated from the students, which has really caught our attention. And so we have a lot of questions that we use, but because of the time and the space that we have here, we've chosen some of the most relevant ones that we think and that we wanted to show you. So this first question, which is related to who should be responsible for motivating the learning of English in this particular case. And what caught our attention again, as you can see the frequency, that we have more than 1,700 students who agree that the students themselves have to be the ones who need to motivate. So this just explains the importance of working on intrinsic motivation, which again becomes really relevant at the time of learning English. Okay? Now, from this next result that we have, okay, we asked the students about developing different skills to interact with native speakers, with native English speakers. And as you can see, the motivation that has been stated here is that they really agree. So one of the reasons why they want to learn English as a second language is because they would like to have the skills in order to communicate with native speakers. And again, as you can see, we're talking about more than 87% of students which actually agree with this statement. And again, so it's important in the fact that for learning in order to communicate with native speakers directly. Okay. In the next result that we have, okay, we stated, or we asked the students if they wanted to get familiar and understand different resources, different English resources or real resources in life, such as like storytelling, tales, songs, movies, series, and different so far. And again, so the motivation to learn in this perspective is that they really agree with this fact. And again, we're talking about more than 80%, close to 90% of the students, which actually, or the reason why they want to learn English is because they want to get familiar and they want to interact with different songs, different movies, or they want to understand different songs, different movies, different tales, stories that they could probably read. So again, it's very important. In the next result that we wanted to show you, we asked the students if the language will allow them to form relationships among people among people from different parts of the world. And again, more than 80%, actually more than 90% agree with this, that they really want to interact with people from different countries. And this just shows the importance of actually establishing and identifying, recognizing English as a lingua franca. So in order just to communicate with people, not necessarily just with native speakers, and not necessarily just with people who speak English, but they can also use English in order to communicate with people who speak different languages. And English will be the tool or the medium in order to communicate with these people. Okay. Next, about the quantitative results is if English will help them acquire more knowledge on different topics or expand their knowledge in different topics. So in this way, and again, more than 90% of the students, they really feel that English, it's a tool that can help them expand and acquire more knowledge on different topics, not just in English itself, but different topics that we actually have. Okay, so that's it for now for the quantitative results, and I'll leave you with Fernanda. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the qualitative results that we got from the focus groups. Here we have at least 5 different questions. And the first one was, do you think it is important to motivate college students to learn English? And they said, yes, of course it is important. And the reason is because that gives them that extra push they need to continue learning. Sometimes they feel that English is too difficult because they don't have a strong foundation of the language, or they just see English as a class they need to pass to fulfill their graduation requirement, or they feel that English is not too important for their careers, and that makes them feel not too motivated. So they need that external motivation somehow. And also, they said that motivation can boost their self-confidence. Sometimes they are afraid of making mistakes, and that's why they stop learning. So they need that motivation to continue, even though we know that everybody makes mistakes when we are learning another language. Also, they recognize that English is important to improve their profile if they want to study or if they want to work. So several students mentioned that it is important to motivate and teach English not only in college, but actually before they get to college. So that means when they are in primary school or secondary schools, that motivation and that learning of English should start. And also it is easier for students to learn a language when they are little. The second question was based on the results that we got from the survey. In the survey, we got that at least 90% of students said that they were motivated to learn English. So the question was, what do you think about this? Is this real? Is this real experience, real results? So some students said yes and others said no. And I'm going to tell you why. What are the reasons that they expressed? So the students that said that they are motivated, they say that it's usually extrinsic motivation, maybe to pass a class, to fulfill a requirement, or to have a better CV for the future or resume. But others also said that they are motivated, but they think they need more perseverance, compromise, or responsibility that actually is needed for every single class, not only for English. Others mentioned that they are motivated, but sometimes it's hard for them to learn the language, and that's why they end up giving up. And that is usually because they feel they don't have a strong foundation of the language. And something that was very common and many students mentioned, and probably we have seen as teachers as well, is that they are motivated to learn English, but they feel they don't have time. They are too busy with projects or other activities, and they have other priorities. When they are in college, their career classes are more important for them, so they don't give too much attention to English. And at the end, that is when they don't take English, they leave it for the end. And then at the end is when they feel that they are in a hurry or to take English, or that is an obligation. And those students who said that they are not too motivated to learn English, they said that that is because they don't see too much the relationship between their careers and English. And that's why they are not too motivated to learn. And others mentioned that it is because they don't have the opportunity to practice English in their daily lives. So they say, like, if we don't really have a need to use English, then what would be the reason to learn it? That was the reasons they gave. Okay, the next question was, what are the learning activities that they find that are motivating for them? Some of them, probably the teachers are already using in class, or some of them they would like to have in class are not being used. So the activities that they mentioned in general were dialogues, games, research projects, interviews, audiobooks, songs, videos, role plays, literature circles, competition games, acting, this type of very active activities. But what is important or interesting is that they recommendations that they would like to have. The first one was that they would like to have more practice in the forest, speaking, reading, writing, and not too much grammar. And not only grammar drills, so they would really like to practice and apply the language. Also, they said that they would like to have more time to talk among students or with teachers because they feel that they lack this skill a lot. It is interesting also that they mentioned that they like this idea of using games, but games shouldn't be only entertaining, but also they should be intellectually challenging, something that they really find it is something educational. Other recommendations they provided is that they would like to have a native speaker to practice with. So maybe teachers could invite a native speaker to come to the class and practice, or maybe teachers could help them to connect with native speakers. They could practice via online or internet. And finally, they also recommended this idea of having not only English as a separate class, but actually to have their career classes in English. So I don't know, psychology in English, biology in English, other classes, and that would help. The next question that we asked them was, for what future purposes or plans do you think that mastering English would benefit them? And they mentioned several benefits. The first one was to be a good professional, to have a good resume for a future job, to be able to understand, conduct, and publish research, to communicate with people of other countries, since English is the language of international communication, to travel abroad for studies or for tourism, or also even to work in projects with foreign researchers that come to work in Ecuador. And the last question was, are you motivated to learn English after you finish your compulsory studies of the university? And they said yes. And that is because English opens doors to everything. And also because they realize that if they don't continue practicing, they will forget the language. So they said that they would like to continue practicing and even improve the language. And how they would do it, they said that they would take online courses, exchange programs that they could have. So these were the questions and the results that we found. So now we can move on to the conclusions, some of the conclusions that we found in this study. So as the conclusions, we can see that students recognize the importance of English. They know that this is important for their future jobs, for research, for their life. So, and that's why many of them continue or plan to continue studying English in the future. The second conclusion is that the main reason why they don't focus so much in English is because they don't have time when they are in college, and they focus more usually in their career courses. Another important thing that we found is that if students don't see the practical benefit of English in that moment, it's harder for them to be motivated. So that's why it is important to use English in their college classes so they can be motivated and see the practical use of the language. Also, we found that students think that it's really important to start learning English since primary school and not leave it just for the end. In that way, it will be easier for them to be motivated and to develop the language a lot and not to struggle too much when they go to the university. And finally, we can see that teachers also have an important impact on students' motivation. So students really like these active, creative, interesting, student-centered activities, and that's something that is really going to help them a lot. So that's all the information that we can share about this project. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks a lot for your amazing presentation. I'm sure we'll learn. Thanks a lot for your amazing presentation. I'm sure we all learn and enjoy it a lot. We have one question from Nueva Kulima. He asks, how many students participate in the focus group interviews? I mean, if there were 8 students per focus group interviews or more.
No.
Okay. So, can I?
Hola,
Sorry, can I answer?
hablo yo.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, actually, the number of students who have participated in our 8 focus groups, the number range from 5 to 8. And what, for instance, Crosswell recommends that for focus group interviews. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The next question is, how can we motivate students at the primary school level?
Well, some of the things may be adapted from this project, but mainly the focus of this project is in university students. However, there might be some information data that we've gathered from here that can be useful also in different levels, but or different ages, but it will need to be tested from there. But one of the things that is relevant is that students have said that motivation needs to start from the basis and needs to start from a very early age. So that's something that we need to keep in mind as teachers, educators, parents, and students themselves, how we can achieve that.
Thanks a lot. Thank you again for your amazing presentation. And with that, we conclude the presentation number 12. Thank you for all of you for joining.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to the presentation of the second day of the conference, Challenges, Opportunities, and Reflection on ELT. My name is Michelle Mendez. I'm a student of 5th semester in English language teaching major in UNAE. I'm responsible for hosting this presentation today, and I'm glad to welcome Julia Sevi-Bilong, who has been teaching English for over 10 years. She is originally from United States and has a master's in teaching English as a foreign language from Nova Southeastern University in Florida. She has been a researcher and professor at the National University of Education, UNAE, in Ecuador for the last 5 years. She is a professor in the English language teaching training degree program, and today she will present virtual or face-to-face classes, students' preference and opinions. You can write your questions, comments, or doubts on the comment section. And at the end of the presentation, Julia will answer questions from the audience. And now here is our guest, Julia Cevallos, and you can start with the presentation.
Hello. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Today, I'm going to present virtual or face-to-face classes, students' preferences, and opinions. So again, my name is Julia Cevallos. I have a master's in English teaching. I've been working in UNAE for the last 5 years. I'm sorry, there's a really strange sound. I can't hear. I hear an echo. Yes, sí, echo, escucho un echo. Okay. And I've been working in UNAE for the last 5 years in the English language teaching major. I'd like to begin with asking a quick question, and I'd like you guys to write it in the chat. Can you guys let me know, do you prefer our new reality of online classes or face-to-face classes? Just tell me why in 1 or 2 sentences, and I'm gonna read your answers. Please go ahead and make some comments in the chat if you can, if anyone can tell me, what do you prefer, online classes or face-to-face classes? Yeah. Okay, most people here are saying face-to-face classes. Some people say blended. One person even says that they enjoy online classes. So today we're going to talk about this and how everybody's perceptions is different and everyone's opinions about online learning and face-to-face classes are so different. So since the pandemic started, teachers have had to reevaluate and reformat how classes are taught and delivered. Unfortunately, in Ecuador, classes are still online, and there's no date of when we will return to the physical classroom. So we as teachers are constantly adapting, and one of the ways that I've started adapting, it depends on my students' perceptions and preferences, and seeing how important their opinions play in how we move forward in creating these online classes. So why do I think it's so important that we use students' perceptions as when we're recreating our teacher medium? So I think it's important to understand that the definition of perception. McDonald and Kyung define perception as how people understand and internalize knowledge, experiences or expectations, and how one person sees their reality and their experience. Once we define perception, then we can understand better how that students' perceptions really are important, and we really need to understand each student's personal situation and background when we're planning our classes. So why did I decide that I needed to look into this? I've noticed over the last year that some students really thrive while learning online, and others are really struggling. So I decided to look at and find out students' opinions and perceptions of online learning versus face-to-face learning. I also tried to identify positive and negative student preferences about online learning and tried to understand how these perceptions are affecting their learning at a university level in EFL. So this study took place in the University Nacional de Educación, UNAE, in the PINE major, or the English Language Teacher Training major. I looked at 69 fourth, fifth, and sixth semester students who participated. There were 20 classroom observations, 15 one-on-one interviews, and a semi-structured questionnaire administered to all the students at the end of the semester. So in the classroom observations, which I did first, I noticed that about 60 to 90% of the students were not turning on their videos. There were a lot of reasons for this, which I found out later. And I also noticed that about 50% were actively participating in their synchronic classes, while the other 50% once in a while would say yes or no, but weren't interacting very much. So out of the 69 students of the study, in the questionnaire, 47 students said they preferred learning in face-to-face classes, and a surprising 22 students preferred the new e-learning classes. So when I asked them, when I was interviewing them, and in the questionnaire, I asked them, well, what were the negative and positive perceptions and preferences that they had? And there were many different ideas. And today I'm going to focus on the top reasons that students gave. So the first area I'm going to look at are negative perceptions of e-learning, or negative opinions students gave. Many said that a big problem that they had was internet connection. Many sometimes couldn't connect for a whole class, or they didn't understand the teacher because their internet cut out. Sometimes they were connected on their phone, and that internet just wasn't good enough for them to really participate in class. Some of them are not don't have access to the necessary technology or sharing devices among or they're sharing devices among family members, meaning that they might have one computer for 3 kids or 4 kids at home, and therefore sometimes they have to connect on their phone. A few said that they were worried about their appearance and how they looked. Some were working and taking class at the same time. Others were cooking a meal or taking care of their younger siblings or their children while taking classes. And some of them just felt uncomfortable or embarrassed and just didn't want to turn their camera on and didn't feel comfortable participating online. So the students said, I do not have a computer and we do not have internet at home. I have to use my cell phone for class and use the internet from my cell phone provider. I simply do not have enough internet to turn on my camera. Another student said, I now have to work to provide for my child since my husband lost his job. I'm working while I'm attending your class, and this is the reason I cannot turn on my camera. My brothers are also taking classes online at the same time, and I have to help them. We have to share the computer during that time, so I take your class on my cell phone. There were many reasons that were negative that depended on the student's personal situation that affected how they were learning in their university classes. While there were some negative perceptions, there were also positives. So some of the students said they actually preferred taking online classes because they didn't have to go to university every day and they didn't have to travel long distances. So they had a lot more time to complete tasks and do homework, and they had time to do things that they enjoyed doing outside of university. Some also said that they were more comfortable participating in class through Zoom. They had more confidence. Others said that they found out they learned better independently. Many people said they just feel safer at home right now because of the virus. This is something really important, that because of the virus, our feelings of going outside have changed. So we can see through these comments that the students said, such as, I have found I participated more through Zoom than I did in the classroom. I save money and time because I do not have to travel 2 hours to the university every day. Studying at home actually gives me more time to complete tasks and do my homework well. I like having more independence and in control of my studies. So we can see a lot of students have really differing opinions about virtual classes or face-to-face classes. What I found through this is that before, when I was a teacher in a classroom, my students walked into the classroom and left their personal problems and their personal situations outside and came to class ready to learn. Now, the classroom is going into their personal life, it's going into their home, and all of that, their personal things are affecting how they learn. And so it's really important as teachers that we start to take into consideration students' perceptions on how they're learning. And we also take into consideration how students are learning and the reasons that they're maybe participating or not participating in class. These things are really important, and it's something new to consider as a teacher. So in the end, we found out that most students really do want to go back to face-to-face classes as soon as possible, but there are some who have found it to be really beneficial because they have a different learning style and learning online is working for them. It's been really difficult for everyone to move to e-learning, and sometimes some students are more comfortable and sometimes they're not. This research has shown how students learn and improve in different ways depending on their individual needs and living conditions. I found that many students who prefer virtual learning may not have to take care of their siblings, may not be working, have a good internet connection. And these are all factors that need to be taken into account when we plan. When we know these factors, we can better adapt our planning to support those students. And finally, I've realized how important it is to have good communication with each of our students so that we can understand their situation and teach better to their needs. All right, thank you. My presentation was very short. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia, for this amazing presentation. I hope you all enjoyed this amazing presentation. Sorry, wait a moment.
Hi, everyone. So unfortunately, Michelle didn't get the questions, so I'm looking at the chat. So Susan, I think they are universal. It seems like these are things that are affecting all students, and we don't always talk about them because for us, teaching is hard enough, and adapting to online teaching is really difficult. And then trying to think of all the different students' needs is a whole other stress level. But I found that understanding the students' needs and their personal situations is really helping them and actually in the end helping me. Let's see. Somebody else had a question. So Axel says, do you think that students working independently will acquire the same knowledge as students working in groups? I don't know. I think to acquire knowledge, and as I said, there are some students who really are thriving working independently. But our job as teachers is to find ways to help you guys work together also. So hopefully, as a teacher, you are finding ways for students to be able to interact, even if we're in an online mode. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you again, Julia. Yeah. Thank you again, Julia, for answering those questions and for the great presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us. So this concludes the presentation. Thank you all for attending. We hope you have learned and enjoyed this presentation. Please stay at this link for the next presenter.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the presentation about reflections on the challenges and opportunity of language exchange in a public university. My name is Lidia Gobea, and I'm here with my colleagues from SPOL, Catherine Salvador, Wendy Rivera, Dargin Padilla, Cindy Bolaños. So in the next slide, we can see a little bit about my presenters today. And we are going to start talking about this topic, about language exchange. Next slide, please. Okay, there you have information about the presenters today. We are all from SPOL. And now, before we start, in the next slide, we want to show you a little survey that we conducted with some teachers of English because we wanted to know their impressions about tandem or language exchange. So I invite you, our audience, our live audience, to please in the chat answer these questions as well, because we want to know what are your beliefs about tandem or language exchange. We asked these teachers, the results that you can see in the slides, we asked them 2 questions. The first question, have you heard about language exchange or tandem? And in the next slide, we can see their answers. Some of them say that they do not know about tandem or language exchange, but they are interested in knowing about this topic. And in the following slide, we can see the second question. That it was about what have you heard about language exchange? Some of them said that nothing because they hadn't heard about this term. But some others, as we can see in the next slide, some others said that for them, language exchange was like an interaction with native speakers. It offered them the opportunity to communicate with people from other cultures. So in the next slides, you can see the answers from these teachers. Some of them said that maybe it was like a scholarship or it was an exchange of information, basically between a native speaker and a non-native speakers. We can see that in the next slides. You can see those results that we obtained in that survey. That's why we want you to please, in the live session, tell us what do you know about language exchange. We will be reading your answers. So here we have some of the answers. Basically, as I told you, they think that it consists on exchanging information. But what is actually language exchange? In the next slide, please, we can see that according to the literature, language exchange or tandem is an interactive method based on mutual exchange between partners, where ideally each learner is a native speaker in the language the other person wants to learn. So tandem has presented itself as an ideal option for higher education institutions to enhance their internationalization process, shortening language and cultural barriers due to mobility issues. So this paper in progress describes the facilitation of tandem through an English conversation club with the participation of faculty members and students in a public university. Now, my colleague, Catherine Salvador, is going to continue with the objective.
Thank you, Lidia. The objective of this study was to evaluate the language exchange or tandem experience within the context of a conversation club of our English language department. We wanted to explore if language exchange can be proposed as one of the strategies for the internationalization of our institution. Because here we can have members of our community and members of other higher education institutions interacting in this context. We employed several strategies during the language exchange sessions. Most of them were based on task-based activities and conversational techniques. What the literature says about tandem. When we explore the literature, we can find that there are many experiences of these kind of interactions. At the beginning, it was meant to be more a pen-pull interaction with students of other languages where the common language was English. But also we find experiences of exchange of the languages in Spanish and Japanese, or German and French, or English and Spanish. In our case, we are trying to get our students practice their English language with members of the community whose language as a first language is English or as a second language. So this author says that this is a great opportunity to enhance autonomous learning, and this is a very good bridge between formal and informal learning. Calvert is one of the authors that extensively have studied language exchange or tandem experiences. He proposes that language exchange can help not only for the improvement of the target language, but also to get intercultural competence. That is, knowing the language in the context, but also the exchange of other information about the participants. So in our planning, we set every Friday language exchange sessions. We invited members of our community, some visiting scholars whose first or second language was English, to exchange and to talk and to participate with our students. We had 9 sessions in total, and most of the activity included conversational cards, like the one you can see there, and the cards were translated. For example, in one section, we have the English question or topic. In the other part of the card, we have the Spanish question. So we gave students and participants the opportunity to interact 30 minutes in one language and 30 minutes in the other language. That is what language exchange or tandem is about in most scenarios. We also had board games where participants could interact in the target language too. Later on in this presentation, you are going to find some pictures that best shows the kind of interactions that our students and our participants have. Now, Cindy is going to explain the methodology that we employed for this study.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Catherine. The language exchange program consisted of 9 face-to-face sessions facilitated by an instructor. This study employed 4 open-ended questions to gather the perceptions of this experience. The questions were sent in Spanish to the participants to reduce language barriers and gather deeper insights. The program was developed within the Select Conversation Club with a total of 95 attendees. A thematic analysis of the responses highlighted some aspects and pitfalls of this experience as per the voice of the participants. In the next slide, we observe the online questionnaire sent all Select students. In the next, in the demographic data show us that 55% were men and 45% were women of the 95 attendants. Students, in the next, students of English 2 and English 3 had a higher representation and are equivalent to 60% of the conversation club attendees, while the lowest represented course was English 1 with only 2%. In relation to the academic units, it is, in the next slide, it is evidence that the faculties of computer science and social science and humanities show a greater number of participants, which is related to the fact that both academic units have the largest number of students and professors in the university. Darwin will help us with a brief thematic analysis of the responses.
Thank you, Cindy. Trying to expand the notion exploring the previous idea, I would like to say that once we collected and meticulously analyzed the data, we conclude that the main reason the student had to the conversation club, the main reason that the student had to go to the conversation club, and therefore to the language exchange program, which happens to be an essential part of the conversation club, were these four: learning purposes, affected reasons, internal and external reason. If we analyze this, there are nothing but intrinsic, extrinsic, instrumental, and integrative motivation. For instance, some students said that they went to the conversation club, to the language exchange program to improve their pronunciation, to improve their listening, to improve their vocabulary, while others, regarding affected reasons, said that they went because they wanted to reduce anxiety, to lose this panic they have when talking in front of others in real class. Talking about external reasons, some students said they were motivated towards the culture, interculturality, interaction with others. And if you pay attention, this has to do with intrinsic and integrative motivation. External reasons, and regarding this, others say that they were moved for a snack that the teachers provided. Others went there because they wanted to get extra point offered by the teacher, of course. And others, was because they wanted to pass any international exam. This has to do with extrinsic and instrumental motivation. Additionally, in the next slide, the previous one, Miss Wendy, the previous one. Okay, that one is that's correct. That one. Would you place it next? Very good. Additionally, we can say that we got some good comments towards the conversation club. For example, the students were talking about relaxing and environment. They didn't have they didn't have pressure. It was less informal, so they can talk openly. Another one was, the opportunities for students to interact, the interaction they have, students, teacher. Teachers were a very essential part of this with the report. It was a very good report, which means that the teachers were friendly, interculturality, and the suggestion that they provide us would we should have a multi-level and mono-level session. Also, that we have some suitable timetables. Why? Because even though they wanted to go there, they didn't have time because they have, very hard schedules. Need to improve communication channels. Some of them claimed that they didn't receive or they didn't learn if the conversation club was being held in the university. And other said that they need more interactive session. I think that when they were talking about this, they were talking about a multi-level session because some of them were a little bit reluctant to speak for the very first time. In the next slide, we can see that we have other good comments that we thought that were really relevant to present. For instance, some of them suggested that it should be online. Others, say that they really liked the way, the interaction that they were having in the language exchange program. Others said that they liked the game, they like games and how the teachers manage the class. And one of the most important is that some of them went to visit the logo ship, which is an international ship that has people from different parts of the world, and they feel excited to practice, to put into practice what they have learned. This was a very good experience that can teach us that language exchange really works if we know how to conduct it wisely. Now, my friend and colleague Wendy is going to continue with the last part of the presentation. Thank you.
In conclusions, change allows students to be in touch with a language-based approach in a friendly, supportive, and intercultural atmosphere. A virtual language exchange program is recommendable to promote speaking skills, interculturality, and cooperative and independent learning. Language exchange programs should be included in the curriculums of universities, as has planned activities which focus on target language, and these ought to be monitored by a tutor. As a result of this, the university could monitor students' improvement. Language exchange is an excellent way to boost the internationalization of universities. In the next slide, there are some recommendations to design a virtual language exchange program. A language exchange should have a suitable and flexible schedule. For instance, if one student from Germany wants to interact with an Ecuadorian one, they could do it without having time zone barriers. It is recommendable the language exchange program has a friendly environment without any pressure. Thus, the students could foster their speaking abilities. To have a successful language exchange program, universities should place the participants according to their level, according to the European framework. It could be interesting if the language exchange programs have an exciting and engaging topics to discuss, such as life interests. It is recommendable if universities have the participation of international students to enhance students' speaking abilities. In the following slide, you can see the references we use for this research. In addition, I would like to share some pictures regarding our language exchange program. So we had some American students, Chinese students, German students, among others. It has been an honor to be here, and I will pass the host. If you have any questions or doubts, you can be in touch with us. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thanks a lot for your amazing and interesting presentation. Now we have some questions for you. So the first question is, would it be possible to extend this exchange program to other public universities here in Ecuador?
Yeah, I will be delighted to answer that question. And I think for any type of university that have contacts with other institutions or that welcome international students or international scholars can start a program like a language exchange. Now, thanks to the virtual platforms, we can even expand that because we don't need them to be physically in our campuses. They can connect online. And nowadays, after the pandemic, our students are more used to that kind of interactions. So if you have an international relations department, that would be a good starting point to explore how many participants or members of the community, the university community, can get engaged into this program.
Thank you. We have a second question, that is, the language exchange program looks effective. What is needed to implement this program in Ecuador?
I think yeah, it's related to the former question, what is needed? Of course, an English department that runs the program, flexible timetables, tutors, because according to what we check in the literature, experiences of having a tutor in the language exchange sessions is more productive than just leaving the students to have the interactions on their own. And the program that we established is mostly, as I mentioned before, using conversation cards or these conversational techniques where we give the participants a space to talk about various topics.
Thank you. The other questions we have are, first, what is the most important role of a teacher during a language exchange?
Oh, that's a really good question, and it's very important. Based on what the literature says, those experiences that didn't have a tutor were not as effective as those that had an instructor. In our experience, we did have an instructor monitoring the sessions and also trying to provide feedback to make corrections when needed, and also to have all the participants engaged in the various activities.
The other question we have is, could you find a disadvantage about using a language exchange?
A disadvantage? Absolutely not. I think it's always good because, you know, what happens when you have international students in your campus? And actually, that is what some of our participants said. They say, we do have scholars that come from other countries. Why don't we engage with them? And remember that the opportunity of having international students is precisely to interact with them. It is not for them to attend our colleges or to come to our campuses, but just to create those bridges. Because remember, our students will want to know and their traditions in the case that they want to start business relationships with them or other type of academic networks with them, etc.
Thank you. We have another question that is, what apps can we use to support a language exchange?
Apps? Okay. The experience we talked about was face-to-face sessions, but we are exploring how to do this using a virtual platform. So we know we are exploring various apps, for example, Zoom, because of the chance that you have to break out in small rooms. There is another app, and I can share the links so you can explore them. WonderMe is another good one, and Gather is another that we can use for those interactions.
Thank you. We have one last question that is, how can we keep up an effective follow-up process during the language exchange?
Okay, we do believe in enhancing autonomous learning. So one of the strategies that we can use is give our students or the participants a reflective learning log where they can write down the topic they talk about, the phrases they learn, or the vocabulary they learn, and even the corrections that were made. And some of the participants or attendees were asking about correction. And the correction can come from a peer, and according to the literature, when the correction comes from a peer, is more valid for the learner than the correction that comes from the instructor or the teacher. So with these autonomous learning logs, the participants can have their own track of their learning process.
Thanks a lot. With that, we conclude this amazing presentation. And now I invite you to check all the posters that we have on YouTube and also on the EVEA platform. Thanks a lot for attending this presentation.